Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Spoils of Akron podcast. My name is Cody Stanley, and I'm here with my co-host,
Shane Wynn.
And this is a podcast all about the art, culture, and eccentric residents of the Rubber City. So today, we have a very special podcast. We're super excited to be here with Andy Troutman, and we're at the winery at Wolf Creek, which is where I work part-time, and Andy owns the winery, right?
I do.
Right, so Andy is here to talk to us all about the fun history and exciting things that are going on here and could be actually happening right now. We have yappy hours going on, which I forgot about, so I'm super excited. The puppies are all out.
You'll hear it in the background. We have background music.
Whenever we go outside. Mm-hmm. But Andy's here to talk about, maybe we can start with a little bit of history of Wolf Creek, right? And how you started here.
Oh boy. Well, it's a long and interesting path. So the winery was started by Melvin and Andy Weinberg back in the late 70s, early 80s. They started planting vineyard out here on the property, and it was a piece of property that Melvin Weinberg had purchased for his family and moved basically out of Akron. He was a chemist at Quaker Oats in downtown, was eventually vice president of Quaker Oats, and he always told me they bought this farm out here because he could see Quaker Oats downtown on the horizon, and he told me if it ever caught on fire, he would know he didn't have to go to work that day. But so they bought 35 acres out here in Copley, which was then a sleepy, wasn't even a suburb, it was the country back in the early 50s. And they had always been maintaining this property, and in the late 70s they said, okay, we're getting older, what's something we can do here so our sons can maybe come help us out, maybe mow the yard, maybe grow something. And they thought about growing hops, and they thought about growing grapes, and the one son, Andy Weinberg, said, well, let's start a winery. And so he went and worked for Tony DeBevic up in Chalet Debonnaire up in Madison for a few years, and they were planting vineyard here in sort of the lower field. When you see the view out here, that was originally the original vineyard. And then, over the years we've learned that wasn't a very good place to grow grapes down there. It was much better to grow it up on the hillside and up on top of the hill. But so they started having harvests early 80s. They got a permit. They built the original winery 1983, 1984. It was permitted in 84, I believe. And then they started selling wine in the summer of 85. So, it's been 32 years or so.
And this is the original building, right? Like it was it's been renovated.
This building that we're standing in now was built probably about 1987, 1988, somewhere in there. The original cellar is the lower cellar where all the tanks are still kept. And where Carrie, our winemaker's office, that was the original tasting room. So you had to walk down through the woods around to the back, knock on the back door to buy a bottle of wine for the first couple of years until they built this space.
Maybe we should recreate that at some point. That kind of sounds fun. It's like a speakeasy sort of feel.
There's a lot of poison ivy down there, too.
Oh, so. Never mind.
So things have changed a little bit over the years.
So was that kind of a blind leap of faith to say, well, we're going to grow like vineyard grapes here? Can you sort of depend on being able to do that, or is it?
I think it was a risk that they, at the time it was very risky because back then the permitting process was very difficult and there was a lot of sort of hurdles just legislatively and legally you had to sort of jump through. When this opened, there were probably only maybe 24, 25 wineries in the state. So, and now there's almost 300. I mean, it's like 270 some wineries in the state. Mm-hmm. So that process has become a lot easier. It's become less expensive. It's become much quicker. And then, I think just where grapes were being grown, traditionally, grapes were grown up along Lake Erie and down along the Ohio River. The interesting thing was in Worcester, there's an agricultural research station at OARDC, and they've had a research plot of vineyard there for over 100 years. So you could look at what they were doing there and say, well, that's only 30 miles away. We can probably grow some of those things here. And that's ultimately what they did.
Okay, that was a good point of reference. That's important.
So a lot of what they were planting down there were things that were hybrids, so they were more hardy, winter hardy, more disease resistant. Things that were guaranteed. They were not guaranteed, but they were going to produce a crop consistently. Right.
So were you one of the first vineyards then in this area?
Interestingly enough, there was another winery on the opposite side of Akron, on 224, that was open about the same time. It was open a number of years, and it closed about the time that I started working here. I think it was called Portage Hills.
Okay.
And the building's still there. The original vineyards are still kind of etched in the landscape over there. But so there were two wineries in Summit County for a number of years, and of course Wolf Creek has been able to continue.
Right. I've been coming here forever. So before all the other vineyards sort of cropped up, and now there are. How many vineyards are in the area now? Do you know?
Oh boy.
Sounds like quite a few.
just on the canal corridor, and it's been a few years since I've counted. There's probably 25 or 30 wineries just from Akron, northern Summit County, all the way down to Tuscarawas County.
That's a fun heritage to be the first of two, though.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
So they were kind of the right place, at the right time, with the right idea. I still wish they would have planted some hops and done that, but it's a whole different
It's
story.
never too late.
It's never too late.
I'll help you if you name a
here.
beer after me.
So Andy Weinberg had started the winery originally, and then you said there was one over there about the time that you started. And when was that?
I have been here at Wolf Creek for 20 plus years, about 21 years.
And how did you get started?
How did I get started? Well, my whole focus as far as my education and what I wanted to do career-wise was it was really twofold. One, it was value-added agriculture. I came out of Ohio State knowing I wanted to make something, whether it was goat cheese or beer or something where we create a raw material and turn it into a product that we can sell. So there was that little kernel kind of growing in my mind. And then the other part of that was I had been growing grapes since I was really little, sort of as a 4-H project. And then I was the 8th grade kid trying to make wine, and in high school I was trying to do other things that were a little.
So you were popular.
Yeah, well,
you got invited to all the parties.
My winemaking skills improved over the years considerably. But so I went to Ohio State knowing, or eventually knowing that this is kind of what I wanted to go into, and I met Andy and Hart Weinberg at the Ohio Wine Conference, which is usually in February, and that was about 25 years ago, and my plans were to go to California. I got into grad school. I had found a job out there, and I was heading out there. And they said, "Well, hey, why don't you come work for us for summer? It'll look really good on your resume." And it's one of those things where, I've been to California since then, but never made it out there in a professional sense. So
well,
I
the
started
weather
out,
here is much better.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I feel like you
it's
made a good
much
choice.
better. I don't really like snow, so. But in the interim, it was I knew we wanted to have our own place, and going to California and visiting Napa and Sonoma and Mendocino, the price of land is a little higher there.
Just a little
bit.
It's a little higher there.
That is truly the advantage of this
and-
area.
And my
cost of
family had
living.
been farming in the Wayne County, Southern Summit County area for generations, and it was kind of, well, why don't we try it here? And I started working the vineyards here, so I was pretty much the vineyard manager for maybe 3 years, and I had told Hart and Andy, just teach me everything. I want to know how the cellar works. Just tell me stuff about the tasting room. I want to know how everything worked. And so maybe 4 or 5 years into it, a few things happened. Andy and Hart split up, and then Andy passed away. And the family, Melvin and Harriet, they wanted to maintain it as a winery, but the family, the kids and grandkids were spread all over the country, and nobody really had the ability to come back and run the business. So we were asked if we'd be interested in taking on the business and then seeing what we could do with it. So that was in 2002 that we took over the business.
So this is 15 years for you then.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's impressive. Yeah.
So, that's some great history about Wolf Creek, definitely. And I think that now we're ready to kind of go outside and check some things out there, right? Right, Shane?
Yeah. Can
All right,
we
let's
drink
do
out
it.
there too? Yeah,
Sounds
let's go.
Well, we're back here at the winery, and as you can maybe see, I don't know if Chris put this in yet, the dogs are out because we are at Yappy Hours, and Yappy Hours are every Tuesday this summer, right?
Yep.
And they take place from 5 to 8 p.m.?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, I think it's from 5 to 8. So you can bring your dog out to the winery, which is super cool. There's some yard out here, and they always have some cool charities, right? So do you know of any that are coming this summer?
Well, I know Mercy's Door.
Mercy's Door.
I know there's a couple other pet rescue shelters and whatnot here in the area that we've worked with over the years. Really it's for us, it's about a variety. It's about getting exposure to these different organizations that can come in, and some of them will have pets for adoption. Some of them are just raising money for pet medication or whatever, whatever their particular cause is. So there's a variety of organizations that we do with the Happy Hour.
And there's an absolutely beautiful dog that I just pet over there that is up for adoption. This is amazing.
What was the name? Did you
No,
get the
I
name?
don't remember.
Gator. I think it was Gator.
Gator.
Oh, yeah.
Gator.
Yeah. I was going to name him
Very
after a
cute
wine.
dog.
You know, that would make sense. It's
We need a
name's
wine
Bordeaux.
Gator.
Wine
There you
Gator.
go.
Yeah, that's all you got to do.
That's perfect.
So, in addition to Yappy Hour, I know there's some other events that have taken place and maybe plan to take place again, right? Like we have the
Right.
Goat Derby that I know of every year,
Right.
which is the hugest one, right? That you have.
Yeah, the Goat Derby's. It has grown into the largest event that we do on an annual basis. I think the first year we did it, we maybe had 10 or 15 people that were in the tasting room, and I said, "Hey, come out, we're going to race the goats." And they kind of looked at me funny.
Yes.
And then every year it's doubled or even tripled. And even this year with kind of some cool wet weather, we still had a very nice crowd. But basically we do it on Derby Day.
Mm-hmm.
All the goats get a number, and that corresponds to a bucket, and each one of those buckets goes to a different pet charity or a different charity. And so you're not so much betting as you were making a donation, and then whichever goat wins that race, we put another $100 in their bucket. So
How do you get a goat to run? Is
How do you
there
get the
like an
goat to
impetus?
run?
Is there a carrot or is like a
There-
slap on the butt or what?
There is a bucket of grain at the
Okay.
top of the hill, so we always have we always find a couple volunteers. Usually they're small, and they'll shake the buckets, and the goats just know instinctively. They've done it so many times, and usually have one or two that are the leaders, and the rest of them just kind of wander off into the crowd.
That would be me if I were a goat.
Yeah, those,
like,
those-
yeah, I
they-
don't know
they
what's
get a
happening.
little-
Shane Goat.
Where's the
goat-
wine?
The goats with ADHD. kind of
Yeah.
are. But and then usually my daughter will get a group of sort of teenagers to kind of run with them and be sure they're kind of going the right direction. But again, I think we've done it 5 or 6 years here. And it grows a little bit every year. We do it on Derby Day, so we always have mint juleps, and
Ooh,
people
hats? Are there
people wear that.
hats?
People wear their hats, and we give
Yeah.
out prizes for hats. and-
Total Shane
Yes,
event.
yeah,
Totally
I
is.
want to. Yeah, I have a hat for
you know,
everything.
it's
That's awesome.
It's a great event, and it's it's for some worthy causes. And then we always start out with our adult Easter egg hunts. So usually the couple weeks
Ooh,
before
what's
that,
in the Easter egg?
That's my favorite one.
What's in there?
all sorts of I don't want to say adult-oriented things, but
Wow, this
In a
is
way,
exciting.
right? I
in
mean,
a way,
Yeah.
there's no other way to say it.
Okay, I gotta
Um,
check that out. That sounds good.
And if you've never been to an adult Easter egg hunt, it is
I
the
have not.
craziest thing that you ever see. 'Cause you
Wow.
will have-
No, wait. What day is this on Easter?
I mean, there isn't
You're
one
close
on
to.
Easter, but
We
there,
usually
we
do
had
it-
5 this year, right?
Yeah, we usually do it like the Saturdays and Sundays prior to
Mhm.
Easter.
okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they sell 50 tickets, and 50 adults come out.
Oh, is it
and they all
competitive?
start- Yeah,
And
yeah.
now is this after we have had several glasses of
Yes.
wine?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
this is
definitely.
getting good.
And we all
Yeah,
start up
I'm
on
coming.
the deck, and then somebody, normally Jen, will just yell, "Go down!" and everybody runs down the hill and looks for the eggs. And there's a golden egg.
There is a
right?
golden egg, and the golden
Oh,
egg
what?
survived the catastrophe next door, which we can talk about.
Perfect.
Oh, that's really
Which
cool.
is
So
Another miracle.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring my friends, and there's probably gonna be a girl fight. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
just saying
there-
because we get our elbows in. We're
There's
like
some-
competitive.
You've never seen so many middle-aged old ladies run down a hill before. Definitely.
Sounds amazing.
The best part about it is watching people. Not
Fall.
the best part.
Well,
they slide.
It's a good part.
because
Oh my gosh!
Late
Now what do you
March.
wear to this? Can you wear like a crisp yellow Easter dress and then slide down the hill?
and boots.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
whatever
I'm
you
gonna
want.
do.
Boots, definitely boots.
Okay,
Definitely.
this is
It's-
good.
it's
I'm
very
coming to
entertaining.
that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well,
I didn't
let's
know
go-
about this.
Let's
Yeah.
go check out that hill over there.
Okay, let's test it out. You slide
I'm
down.
not sliding.
Yeah, that'll be good. So we're now at the overlook here. This is the goat overlook, though.
The goat deck.
technically, the goat
Goat
deck.
deck,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Yes, and there are 3 goats behind us whose names are.
Zelda, Clover, and Peanut.
Did you name the goats?
Peanut I named. The others were named by my children.
Oh, that's sweet. Those are good names.
Yeah.
You could you may have had a contest. You could give people like 3 to 4 glasses of wine and ask for names.
We
That's
thought
also
about
nice.
that, and I think we tried that once, and we got some pretty obscene names, and
Oh,
decided that
no.
probably wasn't
Okay,
the
yeah,
best
these are more
idea we
more
had. but
acceptable.
Yeah,
Right?
we need some family-friendly names, but
So Peanut was first, right? And how
Peanut-
did you acquire her?
well, probably 15, 16 years ago, I had this idea. Let's make goat cheese at the winery, and so we started buying some goats, and we've always had 1 or 2 goats, but we started accumulating goats and buying equipment and all this, and then I realized how much work making goat cheese was, and decided
Not an easy venture.
I'm going to buy my goat cheese from somebody else, but we'll keep the goats. So we kept a few of the goats, and Peanut was one of those goats that had a great personality, and they all have personalities. They're like children. So she's been around for quite a while.
Did you have any successful goat cheese, or was it just
We made some successful goat cheese, but it was just the hours, and it didn't mesh well with what our core business basically. There's a certain cycle that we follow, from planting vines to harvesting to bottling to all that, and it just didn't really mesh with what we were doing. And
I do agree that there's not much that is better with wine than goat cheese. It's the
absolutely.
best, right?
You had goat cheese with wine, Shane?
Of course, I love goat cheese. I'm
Oh,
crazy
okay.
about it. I
Well,
just
I just
had
wanna
goat
make
cheese
sure
for
that-
lunch, I'll have you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go, folks. So in addition to the goats, there's also 2 alpacas in this enclosure typically,
Yeah.
right? And those are Ellie's one. What's the other one?
Monty.
And they like to spit at you. I know
They
from
really
experience.
do that, yeah.
they have a few habits that are, let's just say, pronounced. And, that
And
would
how
be
long
one
have
of
you
them.
had them for?
We've had them 2 summers now out here, and we had a neighbor at the winery in Worcester who had them in with his dairy cows, which I'm not sure how that happens, but decided that his dairy cows didn't like them and they needed a new home. So we said, well, we'll give them a new home.
So then they came here.
So they came here, and they've been entertaining boys and girls. And
Yeah, I mean, the goat deck is always a huge. I don't want to say spectacle, but like there's tons of people that come over here just for the goats.
You
Like the
know,
kids
yeah.
love the goats here. We've got goat crackers inside
Yeah.
for sale, and there's always people down here in the summer.
the
It's
goat
really cool to see.
selfies. The
Yeah,
goat
people
selfies
take
are-
goats. There's a
Oh.
selfie shelf right here.
Is there a name for that, like a gelfie? You just
Oh
have
my
it down there?
gosh,
I
we
mean,
should start
well,
using
yeah,
that.
do you have a particular name?
We need to change the sign. Take a Gelfie.
The Gelfie shelf.
Yeah, Gelfie Shelfie. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
And so, but behind us, I would argue it might be called a spectacle because there is a goat teeter-totter.
Yes.
There is.
And is that actually utilized? Is there ever a goat on both sides?
There-
Because
not on
I'll
both
lose
sides.
my mind if I came here to drink wine and saw that. I'd pretty much lose my mind.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Usually not. Sometimes there is
Okay.
a small child that's stumbled into the enclosure, or a person that's had too many glasses of
Like
wine.
Shane would
I'm
probably
getting
end
ideas.
up in
This
there.
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah. So the whole goat contraption out here, my daughter pushed me for years to build one, and then we sort of have an arms race going on with a couple other wineries.
You built that in your free time?
Yeah, we built that in our free time. But that is my kid's swing set and numerous other bits
Okay.
and pieces we cobbled together. There's a couple other wineries that have goats that, we try to outdo each other each year. Now this year I got a little lazy and didn't add anything to it, but it's
Ooh,
always
slacking.
I've been slacking a little bit.
They're gonna
but
come over and gloat.
Yeah.
Goat.
They're gonna come over and go.
gloat.
"Meh."
No, they're-
Anyway, so the goats. Yeah. What else?
Well, there's been
I lost
many
my
other
train of thought.
animals here, right, over the years, because there's some pictures inside when you first walk in on the left, and I don't really know a lot about that, but
Oh, we've had potbelly pigs and.
Those are fun.
Yeah, boy, what else do we have here?
Chickens.
Yeah, we did have
Chris,
some chickens
there's
for a
goat on
while.
the deck, look.
I still want to get a camel out here, but I keep getting shot down on that one. So
What is it? Yeah, that sounds expensive to feed. Or do they just eat grass?
I don't know. I mean, they're
Do
a
people
desert
have
animal, right?
That
Yeah.
would be awesome.
Yeah,
That
Jen's
camel.
got a camel living next to her house over in
What?
China.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we have to get a camel. That's awesome. Can you
Camel
imagine?
would be
Like
great.
people would come for the camel.
Alice
Just
the
like
I
the
camel.
would,
goats.
especially if I could ride the camel. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
could do
be
that. We'd have
interactive.
camel rides and.
Yeah, okay, that
feed the
sounds
camel.
good. That's a good plan.
It could be a happy camel, a winery camel.
A winery camel. You heard it here first. So, I think we're gonna go kind of talk about something else that happened recently, right? But the goats are great and they're really fun, and you should come out to visit them.
Absolutely.
So we are back in the winery now, and I think that Andy's got some wine out for us to try.
I do. So I grabbed out of the cooler a couple wines that are sort of near and dear to my heart, but there are also wines that we produce from either grapes we grow, or in the case of the apple wine, they're from Geigs Orchard over in Seville. So we have always tried to grow the majority of our fruit. Now, some years it's not something that we can do. I was talking to you guys a little bit off camera about the winter we had 4 years ago, and we lost a lot of vineyard. We had a lot of damage to our fruit trees, so we're still recovering from that, and that was a a major loss for our sort of productive capacity.
Is that wicked winter?
Yeah, it was that wicked winter.
Wow.
And then we had a winter after that didn't really help the recovery process. So in the interim, we've got blocks of vineyard that go back to 1983 that we're still harvesting grapes off of. So we've replanted some things, and we've gone back to some of those varieties that we had many years ago and planted more of those things. So there's kind of been a process we've been going through, and this will hopefully be probably one of the first years where we're getting back to that normal crop level where we can produce at least half of all our grapes that we need, and hopefully more. But that's something that we've always sort of been focused on here, and really at both wineries is growing as much of our fruit as we possibly can, which is, not all the wineries in Ohio grow anything. So, but it's something we pride ourselves on. So,
And do you harvest all the grapes by hand, or is there a machine?
Well, interestingly enough, last year we actually purchased a machine to harvest grapes.
Okay.
So for 30-some years, we were handpicking grapes.
So people would come in, right?
People would come in, we would
Yeah.
hire people, and what's really happened is, as the economy changes and what people do for work changes, just finding people to do it in a timely manner was becoming more and more difficult. In Wayne County, I could find Amish to go out and pick, and that wasn't an issue. But up here in Akron, it had become a real struggle for us to find a consistent.
And I've seen these machines. I did a photo shoot at a vineyard, and they got theirs, I think, from Italy. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like warning, like written in Italian on the back. And is that the same case, or is
ours
yours
is
local?
actually French, so
French. Okay, there you
it's,
go. Okay, so similar. But it's really neat how it works. It just kind of goes down the straddles like the center, and then it's really weird to watch it run through, and suddenly they're like empty.
Yeah, it's a really cool process. It normally would take us maybe 3 or 4 days to pick a block of vineyard, and I could go through by myself.
How big is a block? Just for
block
reference.
anywhere from an acre and a half.
Okay.
So, and usually our pickers were very diligent about picking ripe grapes and picking out the rotten grapes and doing that. So what we've had to do with the machine is we have to go through and kind of clean that up before we run through the machine, because the machine takes about an hour to do
Right.
what would take a couple days to do.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
And
It's mind-boggling to
yeah,
watch these things
it's
work.
really neat.
It's crazy.
I think on my Instagram and probably the winery Instagram, there's a video of our machine working last year. And it just looks like this machine is kind of gliding over the row, and you see it kind of vibrating a little bit, but it literally just shatters all the berries off.
So what happens when your French machine breaks down?
You need to find a
French repairman locally?
French repairman. Somebody speaks with an accent.
You can pretend and
I
come
can
in
act
and
like it. I probably shouldn't.
No.
I always have that they call it farm boy mentality. If it breaks, you can fix it. So you
Yeah,
gotta be able
well,
to find a way, because
Some things I'm
you're
sure.
not going to find parts for it. Let's put it that
No.
way. So
Interesting.
that's one of those things about working in a winery, is you got to be able to fix stuff on the fly. And Carrie will tell you that the bottling line is Italian here. The bottling line is a pretty cool piece of equipment when it works.
Right.
But sometimes a little bubble gum and paper clip and
We'll have
wonders
little
what it
MacGyver action. Yeah,
MacGyver
that's awesome.
things. But you just have to be able to work kind of sometimes with what you got. So
Right. You could always go back and temporarily handpick if you had to, but
yeah,
that'd
that's
probably
gonna
be
be
painful
hard
at this
after,
point.
After
it's
so
gonna
Yeah.
be hard after machine picking. But yeah, so that's been a great piece of equipment, and it's ultimately going to help us expand our vineyards.
I imagine.
To be able to grow more grapes, for our product and for things that we want to do. Hopefully,
That's
in the future.
great.
So, yeah.
So tell us what you have here. I'm so excited.
So I brought out 3 wines, like I said a little bit ago, that have some sort of meaning. Vignole is a wine that we've been producing since the very beginning. Vignole is the name of the grape, and even 20 years ago, there were a lot of wineries growing this grape, and most of them have gone away because the clusters are very small, and you just get a few tablespoons of juice out of each cluster, and they're very shy producers. But it produces a very unique wine. It tends to have sort of a honey, sort of an orange blossom character to it. It tends to be a little higher in acid. So we always leave a little bit of residual sugar, and that's one of the hallmarks of although this is a pretty hefty pour I'm giving us here.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I like that noise, that subtle noise of the wine pouring. I don't know if you picked that up.
So here, cheers.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers.
So it always has that kind of honey and pineapple kind of character to it. A lot of tropical fruit character.
That's really nice.
In sort of the wetter, cooler years, it's maybe not as intense as when we have a hot, dry year where you get a lot more of that honey character. And this is one of the few grapes that regularly gets infected with what's called botrytis, which helps concentrate the. So if you ever heard of Sauternes, which is made in France, it's the same type of sort of biological interaction. You get this fungus that grows in the grapes. It concentrates all the sugar, concentrates the flavors, and this grape every year always has a either anywhere from 1 to 50% of it gets infected with this. So it helps concentrate those sugars. So we've had some years, 1999, 2005, 2012, where, I mean, it literally looked like honey coming out of the press. And ultimately it tastes like honey, but you get a very small quantity because that fungus is kind of drying out those grapes along the way. So
yeah, that was going to be my question. Like, how can you tell when it's infected?
Yeah, it's almost like all natural honey wine or ice wine. You know, it's pretty cool.
Ooh.
But we're still committed to this variety. I mean, they grow a lot of it in Missouri, a little bit in the Finger Lakes still. You know, and it's a fascinating variety.
It's a really unique taste.
Yeah,
I really enjoy that. It's good.
We've tried to make it sweeter. We've tried to make it drier, and this is kind of the style that I think works consistently for us. So.
It's not too sweet, and I would know because
yeah.
I don't go for too sweet. Cheers. It's lovely. It's hard work today on the Spoils of Akron podcast.
Somebody's got to do it.
Gosh, yeah. This is rough.
All right. This is my dinner, by the way. Mine too.
Yeah, me too. Cheers, bikini
At least
season.
I'll agree on that.
Wow, yum. I really like that. So
Well,
tell me about the legs. Tell me about what you're doing.
legs.
What are you seeing?
I mean, it's more the color of the wine to me. It's got a real sort of straw color, which again is indicative of I'd say, it's a hot year.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the apple wine and some of the other white ones are going to be a little bit cleaner, a little bit clearer,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit lighter in color. This always picks up a lot of color, and again, it's the great variety. But again, it was the year. I mean, last year wasn't the hottest year, but it wasn't the coolest year either. So the color's decent. It just depends. And as far as the legs go, I mean, that's kind of a complex interaction between the alcohol and glycerol and some other things that are in the wine. There's thousands of compounds. In a bottle of wine,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of things going on there that create those legs in the glass.
So it's complicated.
It's
like a relationship with the glass of wine. You know, it's kind of a long story.
It's one of those things. Further into the bottle you get, the more you can contemplate the.
Or not. Or you're like, this
Or
one's really good too. I love it. It's really good.
All right.
Oh, we have to finish this. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
how
so we can keep going.
embarrassing.
Yeah. Planning.
So what's the next one you have for
Okay.
us?
So we'll do the apple wine. Original Sin is a wine that hasn't been made here that long, but we've been selling it for probably 25 years. Andy Weinberg had a brother named Mike, and Mike had a winery down in Mount Vernon, and he also had an orchard. And his specialty was apple wines. So he would use different apple varieties, different blends, different things to produce his apple wine. And he would always make a batch of apple wine for his brother here at Wolf Creek. And probably 15, 20 years ago, he got out of the business, so then I had to sort of hunt around for apples, and we've gone far afield, to find apples. But then probably 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I started purchasing apples from Geigs over in Seville. It was about 9 miles away as the crow flies. And we've kind of worked on some blends there with them to come up with something that's going to make, a nice apple wine. An apple wine's a little bit different than, say, a cider. A cider is usually just the cider out of the press and then it ferments. Mm-hmm. So you're maybe going to get 6, maybe 7% alcohol, whereas the apple wine, we'll actually fortify it. So we'll put either cane sugar or apple juice concentrate in it to get it up to where it's going to be 10 or 12% alcohol, somewhere in that, to make it truly a wine.
So can you drink this in the fall and mix it with the things you would mix with like a spiced cider, or is that sacrilege? Is that okay?
I always say you drink it however you like. I am not.
Woo!
I am not that kind of.
Well, it's called original sin, so
I'm not that kind of a vendor.
I can, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So cheers.
Cheers again.
So this is usually made with a lot of Granny Smith apples and other tart apple varieties.
No, it is tart. Ooh, I like that.
Do you?
I do. I like it tart.
Good.
Yeah, that's good.
And it has that nice sort of don't know. It's almost like a yellow delicious sort of finish.
Are they all green apples?
When they press them, they're not actually green. It's just the acidity in the apples. The different varieties is going to be a little bit different.
Okay.
So we try to get a blend of apples that's a little higher in acid because you want that acid to kind of give the wine a little zing, a little pop. And if we're just using, say, like a red delicious or a really sweet apple, it's just going to kind of be flat on your palate, and not be that good.
Yeah, I prefer this. This is good. I like it.
that?
Yeah, tart.
Good.
Be good with goat cheese.
Yeah, that's just it. It's good with food, and you want it to kind of, and there's a little bit of sweetness to it, so you want that tartness and that sweetness to balance.
Ooh, I really like that.
And I didn't pour your glass completely full this time. So.
Thank goodness.
Darn it.
I wouldn't have been able to leave after. I have to hang out for a while.
All right.
I can interview on the floor. It's fine.
Right.
I can finish your sentences. It might be interesting.
That would be a fun episode.
Yeah, it would.
All right. So this one, we're at the end of this one's.
Now, come on.
All right.
What do we got? What is this here? Okay.
So this is a wine. There's a few bottles left in the cooler.
What does this mean when you do this?
I do this?
I'm just curious.
I'm looking at the way that it sticks to the side.
Oh, is that what you're
Well,
doing?
what I'm also doing is I'm aerating it. So when I'm doing this,
I always wondered what that meant.
It also
I should
means
probably know.
I haven't had many glasses because I can do it like that. Usually I put it on the table and do it like that.
Okay.
And it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
It's aerated.
Yeah, it's aerated. You gotta suck it out of your shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh, you can. Yeah, you get a nice whiff when you do that. That is interesting.
So this is from a block of grapes that I think I said earlier was planted in 1983. So this is the oldest block of grapes we have on the property. It's a variety called Leon Mio, which is it's a French hybrid. It's pretty bulletproof in this climate. It'll survive winters. It'll survive plagues of locust and pestilence and a lot of other fun stuff. But we've always made this wine called Nouveau, and usually it's picked say the end of August, first week of September. It's put in the bottle before the middle of November. So this is a pretty quick wine to make. We try to release it, get it out for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then sell out of it. But the grapes were really ripe last year, so this particular Nouveau I think is aging a little bit better than it normally does. So it's usually a light, fruity white wine or a red wine that you're gonna chill, which is again unusual. It doesn't see the inside of a barrel or anything.
That's
it's
nice
good
for
with
the
turkey
summer.
and ham and that kind of stuff. So there's still a few bottles left. So it's just kind of an interesting little treat that we have to try on a warm summer day. Most red wines you're not going to chill.
I like that
Cabernet
because
or
I
Merlot.
prefer red wine, but I don't drink it in the summer because it's not chilled.
And
so.
it's almost dry.
Yeah.
There's
really good.
1.5% residual sugar, so it's not like a sweet wine.
Yeah.
It's got a little sugar left to kind of balance with the acidity, but it was just something unusual to try. And we've been making this for over 20 years. This particular.
So it's
bottle.
named Nouveau, but it's from your oldest grapes.
Nouveau. So Nouveau is it's a French tradition, and in the Beaujolais region of France, it's probably by law they're allowed to produce this crop, vinify it, put it in a bottle before the third Thursday in November, and then they can sell it. And so, whereas
specific.
Bordeaux wine has to be in a barrel for a couple years, or Burgundy or wherever, there's all these rules. So the Nouveau Beaujolais, used to be this big race about how they can get it distributed around the world, quickly. Like it was really a PR kind of thing that they would do. So the original owners, they had a young woman working here before I worked here who was from Champagne, and she said, "Well, why don't we make Nouveau? We can release it whenever we want. We don't have any rule. There's no rules to any of this." So so they started making, they make 25 or 30 cases a year and just give it to friends or family, and they'd sell a few in the tasting room, and we've kind of continued that tradition. It's not something we produce millions of cases of, but it's something fun. And
so this is special that we're getting to sample this.
It
This
is
is
special.
awesome.
Well, thank
I love
goodness.
it.
Please
Yeah,
share it with
very
us.
special
cool.
and delicious.
So can I purchase that if I walk through the doors though?
Yeah, there's still
oh,
a
I
few
can.
bottles up there. I didn't count how many bottles are left, but
There's not that many.
Yeah.
There
right when I
might
was
not
here
be
the
many
day.
after I leave.
Yeah. Even better.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing this tasting with us, and let's go down to the last part of our little tour today, I think. now we've moved down to, I'm sure by now everyone's probably heard of the recent explosion at Wolf Creek. Andy, do you kind of want to just take the lead on this one and tell us kind of what's going on?
About 2 weeks ago, we had an explosion here at the sort of northeast corner of the building here. The distillery was in the lower level. Our great room, which had been open since 1995, was part of that, as well as some offices and some storage rooms. The still wasn't actually operating that morning, but I had come in and turn some things on to get things heated up, and we think there was a gas leak in the building. They were not really able to determine exactly what was going on, and it'll probably remain that way indefinitely. But I'm so lucky that I'm lucky that I wasn't here, but I'm lucky that nobody else was here. It was really early in the morning, and our cleaning person wasn't here, and Jenny hadn't come into the office yet. So I'm counting my blessings, and just, it really I've really reflected a lot the last 2 weeks about what's happened. So at this point, we lost 90% of our brandy that we'd been producing. It was 5 years of work, kind of building up to this, and we were hoping to kind of push some things out in the state stores this summer.
Because the distillery opened when last year?
The distillery opened last summer, and we were doing tastings for a few months, and then we started doing bottle sales later in the summer, and then we were doing some cocktails and some cocktail classes and things like that. And really, we just wanted to create a buzz about what was going on here, and as we kind of worked on sort of refining what we were making, and again building up our inventory to the point where we felt like we could sort of push that product out beyond just what we were selling here, and that was the goal. And we were using excess grapes that we were producing in the vineyard, and again, it was another value-added product. It was another layer, and on top of that, we had the great room, which was the upper level here, and it had been open since 1995, and it was a place where families gathered, and there were birthday parties and wedding showers and rehearsal dinners, and there was just stuff constantly happening in that room. So there's a lot of life events happened here. And and we've lost that, and now we're kind of in that mode of, right now it's what do we lose? We're still assessing that, and then hopefully soon we can start talking about what are we going to replace it with, and we're going to rebuild it somehow. We just don't know what that's going to look like or how long it's going to take,
and even in the product, the product that you produce, those barrels of brandy, it's not just like a commodity. It's your passion, and that was like what your love and the thing that you had committed yourself to. And I'm sure you had a lot of excitement built, behind that as well. So that's a difficult loss. I can imagine as a creator, like as a person that creates myself, that's where I put my love and my time, and so that would be hard to see. This is hard to see, and I'm sure that
my sister. I was talking with my sister the other day, and in our conversation, it is heartbreaking, because it was 1 or 2 days a week for 5 years that her and I, and she's kind of been my co-collaborator on the distillery part of things, and we put a lot of time and energy into it, and it's just in a few seconds it's just gone.
Right. I'm sure you discussed the taste and the process and the ingredients and the sourcing, and there's a lot that goes into that kind of process that people don't realize. So. And with
craft distilling, it's something that Andy Weinberg, the original owner, him and I had a couple of conversations 25 years ago about, I'd always liked to make brandy. And we had always talked about it. We had visited, even before he passed away, we had gone to a couple of distilleries up in the Finger Lakes and met with some people. And, I'd always kind of been that back burner project. And, we were working towards that goal.
So it was like your passion project, realized, and then now you're starting over. Yeah.
And so, we'll pick up the pieces and try to put things back together as best we can. The big thing was nobody was hurt.
Right.
It's stuff. It is heartbreaking. There were a lot of things that we're never going to replace. Our photo archives were in there. Our wine library was in there. So there were bottles of wine going back to the beginning of the winery that were lost. There's just things like that again, nobody was hurt, but those are the things we won't be able to won't ever be able to replace.
Do you think you're going to start? You think you're going to go for the producing brandy again, or are you just kind of waiting to kind of see how?
I'm going to give it a few months and see how I feel. I've been working with another guy down in Worcester, and we're partners on a distillery in Worcester, which is called Minglewood Distilling. And so we've been working on that for about 2 years, and our plan was to open the week that we had the fire here. So, we're hoping that we can open that later in the summer, and we'll just kind of see. I mean,
And I was saying, so I just walked through the winery and into your production sort of facilities in the bottom here, and everything is so pristine and sterile. And to walk through that and then to look upon this, I can feel like the commitment to quality that you had, and how the juxtaposition here of what you see in front of you. But I have all the faith that you'll rebuild and restart, because I'm a positive person. And I do, and I think you never know what arises out of these situations. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this the loss you experienced in the it's terrible.
Definitely. Well, thank you for being on, Andy, and talking all about this. The important thing is obviously no one was hurt, and all of this is rebuildable,
Amen.
right?
Amen.
So, visit the winery at Wolf Creek. We're open 7 days a week, noon to 10, Monday through Thursday, and then noon to 11 on the weekends.
Very
So
good.
come out and see us, and the rentals are still happening in a tent across, that we built, or poured a concrete pad. So we're still having events here and all that fun stuff, and so still contact the winery. And
we've got a farm to table event July 13th, and then we're working on the planning of our pumpkin roll. We're going to roll pumpkins down the hill this fall.
The
Another
pumpkin
fundraiser,
roll.
So that'll be a fun.
Let's come.
event,
I can dress you like a pumpkin and roll
we'll,
you down
we'll
the hill.
roll down the hill. Well, thank you guys
Take you down the
for
hill.
watching the 92nd, Chris? 93rd?
92.
I think
Getting
we
close
think
to
we're at 92
100.
episode of the Spoils of Akron podcast. We're so excited that we got to come here today and talk to you. So thank
My
you
pleasure.
very much.
My pleasure.
And as always, keep it an Akron day.